Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And this afternoon on lLillian's Interviews, Lillian Caldwell will be interviewing Lisa Najjer, who wrote a book called Dying to Tell You, Channeled Messages from the Famously Dead. So, good afternoon, Lisa. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you, Lillian. Thank you for having me on.
Well, after reading your book, I kind of felt pushed into it by some of your famous people. And I decided that this would be an opportune time for you to let people know that even though other people have passed on, they have some advice for the living.
Yes, they do.
So let's talk about some of this advice and how important it really is in today's century, which is the 21st century, even though some of the famously dead are from centuries past.
They certainly are.
So let's start at the very beginning, as Julie Angel does in The Sound of Music. And let's start with the person who feels that it's his show to put on, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. So how does he start the ball rolling with you?
Well, I remember he was one of my earliest channeling, and he talked about the agreement that he made. He said that it's one thing to draft an agreement, but we have to live it. So we're actually doing more than he did. The agreement to be one with one another, to love and to share and to see each other as perfect and as the same as we are. And he thought that it took a lot for us to just live that every day, practice those things every day.
Would you think that he could possibly be referring to a covenant between you and whoever you believe in?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I think I also have a World Unity design, and it's basically the 10 top religions based on the number of followers, and it spells the word one. And what I showed there is that in all faiths, there's a common thread, and that common thread is the golden rule. Treat me as you want to be treated. Do unto others as you want to have done to you. And that's kind of the theme throughout every holy book there is. And I think peace, love, and kindness, that's pretty much all of religion. So, yes.
I think my favorite one is he who without sin, let them cast the first stone.
I love that.
And I love it because basically what it's telling everybody is, what are you doing? If you're so perfect, you wouldn't be down there. You'd be up here with us. So chill.
Absolutely, yes.
And yet people are not chilling. Why do you think, and some of your other famous figures also put their finger on this, why do you feel humans are having so much trouble adhering to the rules that were provided to them eons ago?
Well, my personal feeling is that we just have so much distraction. The messages that we're getting from the quote-unquote world, they're, get what you can, the more you have, the better it is, make yourself look a certain way. It's just, I was with a young person yesterday, she's 27 years old, and she was lamenting how her generation, it's all about the Kardashians and look what we can get and how our body image, and they're just, all their focus is going to that. I just think it's really hard in this day and age to keep focused on what actually really matters and what is going to matter the moment you cross over, what you're going to see. And Jane Mansfield, for example, came through, and of course she was the sex symbol at the time, and she can see now that it was not at all what she should have been focusing on. It never would have satisfied her, and it didn't even then. She even was in angst then, trying to keep her look, worrying about who's coming behind her that's better looking, and on it goes. So I just think young people and all of us were bombarded with messages that are quite opposite to what's important, and nobody's really talking about what is important. We've kind of forgotten about that, and we're not letting them speak, really.
Well, I think there are a few people, and I'm not talking about ministers or priests or even the nuns, and what I'm talking about is that it's a lot easier to go to the dark side than it is to stay on the side with the light.
Oh, I agree.
And everybody knows that. I mean, you don't need to watch Star Wars or Harry Potter or even Lord of the Rings to get that message. Everybody knows it's easier to give in than to stand firm and bend with the oncoming crisis so you can stand up and fight another day. Yeah. And I really think, for example, I have 2 granddaughters. Actually, I have 3 grandkids, but the granddaughters are now 10. They're going to be 11 in the fall. And I have to admit, folks, that yes, mommy's in the fashion design business. And at 10, they're already worried about their looks, about their bodies, what they're going to dress, how they're going to dress. They're not allowed to put on makeup until they're mid-teens, so I'm really pleased about that. But at 10 years old, I wasn't worrying about those kind of things. I didn't care, which may explain why I'm still a tomboy at 65. But I think that if you allow it, if the parents allow those type of distractions to come in, then the kids themselves have a harder time turning away from them.
I agree. Yeah.
Because they've been introduced at an early age. Yeah. And they don't know any better. I mean, when I was bringing up my kid, he was gifted and talented across the board. Goodness knows I could have gotten him in TV. I could have gotten him in acting in movies. I could have done, I mean, he tried out for the fencing team, and he was told the next day they wanted to put him on the Olympic team. But we didn't do any of that stuff. You know why? Because my son wasn't interested in doing these things, and I did not want to live my life through my son. I wanted him, even at the 10 or 10 years old, to make the choices that were going to be good for a 10-year-old kid. And that's what we did. So he never became famous at 10. Doesn't seem to bother him now.
I think that's wonderful, Lillian. That's wonderful.
Well, I think it's because even though I had a rough childhood, didn't mean my kid had to take the same road that I did. And more importantly, you're not a kid. I mean, being a kid these days is a relatively short amount of time.
Now that brings me to Shirley Temple. She was one of the guests, and actually she spoke to that, and she has such a wonderful attitude, even now. And she said that, yes, that if she has any regrets at all, that's it, that she didn't have a childhood, and she made a point of making sure her children did. She went out of her way to do that, to give them sort of an opposite experience. But even so, her overall message was kind of don't blame anybody for whatever happens to you anyways. Even if it was negative, even if it was, even in some cases, quite dysfunctional, you still, in every day, in every moment, have choices, and it's up to us to make them. And she really was all for taking responsibility for ourselves, which I thought was fantastic advice. I know I'm guilty of it myself.
I think everybody's guilty of it. Yeah. And I think you have to recognize, I mean, I see it on TV now with dance moms and kids who are into the rapping game and kids who are doing the baking contest and kids are doing sewing contests. And I really kind of feel sorry for them. I mean, I told Ben, if you're this gifted and this talented, by the time you're 21, it's not going to leach out of you.
No.
You just keep on practicing. Yeah. I said, but it's not going to fall dormant unless you choose to make it fall dormant. Yeah. And I said, so if you're gifted and talented now, you just keep on practicing, and when the time is right, you'll take the world by storm. And that's exactly what he's done.
That's really wonderful.
How old is he? He's now 43. He has 3 kids. He's taking care of the kids so his wife can pursue her dream in fashion design and stuff. So he doesn't have an easy life. He has a lot of things pulling at him. But get this, he's made the choice to do what he feels is part of his soul.
So important.
And that's what you have to look for in yourself and then connect to what you love. And you had a couple other people talk about that. You had Marilyn Monroe talk about that.
Yes, and Walt Disney talked
And
about.
Walt Disney talked about it. Even Jesus talked about it in your book. You have to find that certain passion inside yourself, your anchor, something that's going to keep you balanced. All those words kids don't want to hear these days. But it's true, because once you have that weight, if you want to put it that way, when you get off balance, you won't tip and crash.
Right.
You'll fall back to the original upright position you're supposed to be in.
Absolutely, yes.
So I found your book it wasn't inspirational because a lot of the stuff they talk about I already do. That's what my industry reputation is based on. However, some of the other things they said did bring me up short and made me question whether or not I was also doing that. And one of the big things that all of them had to say was about stress.
Yes, and time being one of the things that stresses out, and also not living our passion. So basically, there is Waylon Jennings, I think, said that that is a total illusion. Time is an illusion, and he missed the song, is how I think he put it. I missed the song. Other people enjoyed my music, but Lisa, I missed the song. And in terms of just not living your passion, if you don't live your passion, there is this underlying stress always, because you know you're not doing what you came to do. You can feel it, and it's just, I'm not going to say settling, but in some cases it is, but it's just short of joy. Even when you're feeling really joyful, from what I've experienced and people that I've talked to, no matter how joyful they are about the situation, circumstances of their life, there's just a little niggling underneath that isn't quite what I'm supposed to be doing, or I'd love to have the courage to do that or to explore that. So they talked a lot about that and just doing it full time. Paul Gauguin, he did do his art, but he wished he had done it more. And in his case, I believe his wife and people, friends and family, whatnot, they suggested he did, where most times it's the opposite. They tried, a lot of people will hold you back based on we need the money or this or that. But his encouraged him to go forth, and it was his own sense of responsibility that he had to do a proper job, have a decent income that was coming in on a steady basis, and he would do his art on the side. And now he wishes he had done more of it, because he said he was just in a state of bliss when he did his art. So.
But it's difficult to always go against the grains of time, because society and your family really hold a very big 2x4.
Yes, they sure do.
And they really have the power to force you to reconsider what you're doing, because you're not staying within the lines that they had previously drawn out.
And sometimes it's the opposite. I just spoke with my good friend the other day, and he reminded me of how, and he believes firmly in following your passion, and it was quite opposite, because his daughter wanted to be a stage actress, and she was very talented, and he wanted her to go to New York and do all that. But she's very, very responsible and thought, I can do that on the side. I think I better get a steady job. So she applied to law school. She got in, and he reminded me how when they were driving from Canada, actually, up to, they hit the, California border, basically. And he said, Rachel, it's not too late. I can turn around. I don't think you should do this. You should follow your passion. And she said, no, Dad. I don't want to be like you. I want to actually have just a steady job, and who cares if I like my job or not? I'll have steady income, and that's important.
Oh, well, her body is going to make her pay for that decision.
She's so unhappy right now. She has a lovely child, and she's more doing the stay-at-home mom right now, but she just does not like her job at all. So you're right. It does. It comes out somehow, some way, through the body, through mental anguish. It comes out somehow. Mm-hmm.
And I really think that people need to allow themselves to go against the grain without feeling ashamed or guilty, or hide it under a blanket or hide in a closet. I know a lot of people like that. They say to me, "You're so serene. How do you do that?" And I said, because I spread myself thin and do everything I really love to do.
Oh, that's inspirational, Lily.
And I said, I don't always get everything done, and it's who knows how long I have left, but I got to tell you something. I'm at peace with myself. I wasn't at my peace for a long time. I fought. But I'm at peace with myself now, and the only person I have to answer to is my husband, and he's pretty much given me carte blanche. So that makes a big difference. But on the other hand, people have to realize that whatever you do, even if you live your passion, you have to pay for it. Whether it's a sacrifice, whether giving up something else. As my father told me when I started out, you always is a price to pay, my friend. You either do it at the beginning, you do it along the way, or you have the balloon payment at the end. It's a lot easier to do it as you go along.
That's smart.
Because you can space it out. And he says, who knows, maybe you won't have to pay a really large price. And the other thing is that you can't have it all. And if anybody ever tells you they do, look closer. Because somebody in their immediate family or friend or something, somebody's suffering somewhere and giving up so that person can have it all. And you get that also from your famous folk in there. They pretty much tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice do you have for people after they read your book? How can they implement some of the things that they read?
Well, I think the book has the potential to be transformative in lots of ways. I think I would say that really the book is filled with simple principles for a complicated world. And I think that we change ourselves one choice at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. So my intention, and I think the intention of the guests that were in my book, is to help people live better lives while they're here on Earth in this body right now. Why wait till you get to the other side to change things and to understand things? You can start right now by aligning yourself with the principles of love, kindness, peace, truth, passion, those kinds of things. I'm thinking about Elvis, and it was sad almost to channel him because he was sad, and he talked about how he learned that, and he could see it right then as he's channeling through me. He says, if you could see what I could see, that every act of kindness, every word, every action or gesture, it ripples out, and it actually is a vibration that ripples out into all of eternity. Every small thing that you do matters. And I thought to myself, well, why wait to get to the other side to find that out now? Or then, why not have that amazing positive influence on the world now? Because you can.
Yeah.
Every time you make a choice, yes.
Absolutely. Now, what would you say to somebody who would say, well, I would really like to try talking to some of these folks. How do I go about doing that?
Well, I also, and I think a couple of them talked about how we all really have these intuitive gifts. I have friends even now that say, no, I don't. I say, yes, you do. We all have it. We all have it. I think that every time we get that gut feeling or that hunch, that's definitely you using your non-physical sense to acquire information about your past, present, or future. And I think people don't give themselves enough credit for their innate intuition. I think we all have it, and just some are better or more in the habit of acknowledging it and acting upon it. So I would suggest, first and foremost, that you just start taking notice of every time you do hear that voice or that you get that feeling, and you actually stop and notice. And the more you notice that you do that, the more confident you'll get that, oh, I guess I do have something inside me. And the other thing is meditate. Learn to meditate, even if it's 5 minutes a day. It's just quieting your mind so you can hear what I call the still small voice, what many call the higher self, angels, God, whatever. If you can tap into that by being silent, quieting your mind, you will definitely hear what the inner guidance that's there. And the other thing is almost everybody's local community has either a spiritualist church, that is a church where they prove the existence of life after death, and they do demonstrations of mediumship, and they have mediums on staff, and they mostly have what's called mediumship development courses or psychic development courses, either one.
Mm-hmm.
And just take one, and you'll notice in my first class, I couldn't believe how much how much connection I had, and everyone in the circle. We couldn't believe how connected we were, and we were amazed. So that would be my advice.
Well, I remember as a kid, and I don't know if other kids did this, but my group of friends did it. We were very strange. We would have somebody lie down, and we would ask him to close his eyes or her eyes. And then we would slip just one finger of each hand under their body, and everybody would do that. And then everybody pretty much, I guess, meditated. Anyway, we had the ability to lift that person who was lying down, and at the time must have been 70 to 80 pounds, and for a group of 9 and 10 years old, that's a lot of weight. And everybody, would lift up the body with their fingers, one finger, 2 fingers each. And I never thought about it, but that is another way of really tying into something outside of yourself.
I've never heard of that. That is fascinating. I'm going to try that.
Well, when I was a kid, I would have out-of-body experiences.
Then you're completely tapped in.
Well, I don't do anything with it. In fact, I have to call my son up because last night, in the middle of the night, I heard his voice calling my name for a good 4 minutes. It was really weird.
Lillian, it sounds like you are really connected, and I know we all have the gift, but some people have it earlier and stronger. And for those
I just never did anything with it. I guess I should, because I also had out-of-body experiences where I'd be on the ceiling looking down at myself. I thought that was really wild.
And that is something that very few people. I think everybody can do all of those kinds of things, but that takes a lot of practice. I actually tried for a number of years off and on to do that, and whether I was maybe scared and didn't, as I was coming up out of my body, I didn't want to. I'm not sure, how that all worked, but in the end, I never really accomplished that. So, wow, I'm impressed.
Thank you. Well, like I said, I never did anything with it because my parents were against it, even though they were both Unitarians. They were very much against that kind of thing. It was the 50s, and you didn't talk about paranormal or ghosts or things of that nature because it just didn't fit into what society at that time believed. Now, if I had come in during the 1900s, I would have been an instant act. So I just think it depends on where society is at that time as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, Lisa, tell the audience if you plan to write any other books by channeling and listening to the other ones across the line.
Yes, actually, when I was I think just at the very end of this one, they said to me, I think it was Abraham Lincoln said to me that, yes, there will be another book. And right after that, they started coming in again. So there's 2 already that have been channeled even back last year. But I had to work on this, getting this out. And it's time now that I sit, quiet my mind, and yes, definitely. I believe there's one more. I don't think more than one, but we'll see.
Okay. It sounds really, really interesting. Audience, if you want to hear this interview all over again, you ought to go over to PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com. Go over to Twitter.com/Caldwell, CAULDWELL. Facebook.com/PWR Network LLC, and GooglePlus.com/PWR Network LLC. And before you go away and stray, Zimmerman had this to say: the change we personally experience from time to time, we obstinately deny to our principles. Now, see, this applies very nicely to this. So, folks, thank you all very much for listening. Before we go, Lisa, tell everybody where they can find you on the World Wide Web and where they can find your book.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. www.dyingtotellyoubooks.com.
Terrific.
Books with plural because there'll be a second one.
Great. Can hardly wait.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Whoops. So please go out and buy Lisa Najjer's NAJJAR book, Dying to Tell You, Channel Messages from the Famously Dead. Thank you all very much for listening, and remember, please keep listening. Thank you.